Dan Sickle, standing in for Steve Tsai, who couldn't be here this evening. So as vice chair, I'll try to guide this conversation tonight. So we'll call the meeting to order at 6:30. We're here with me, Dan Sickle, Jeff Waldron, Mary Neutra, and Paul Durensis. And we ask the assistant administrator to please read the executive session agenda.
Good evening. So tonight's executive session consists of 3 items. Item number 1 is meeting with town council in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A and 3, in Suffolk Construction versus DBM, 449 Mass, 444, 2007, to discuss Richard Thompson versus the town of Sherborn et al., Middlesex Superior Court, Civil Action 2181, CV 01004, and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A and 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, specifically the Public Records Law, General Law, Chapter 4, Section 7, Section 26, to discuss privileged communication with counsel regarding litigation. Item number 2, the strategy session to prepare for contract negotiations with non-bargaining unit employee pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A and 2, Fire Chief. Item 3 is pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A and 7, to comply with or act under the authority of General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22, in Suffolk Construction versus DCAM, 449 Mass, 2007, to review the executive session minutes of 2020 and 2021.
Thank you. Any changes to the executive session agenda?
I move approval as read by the Assistant Town Administrator.
A second.
Okay, excellent. And roll call. Jeff? Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
There's a typo. I'm trying to decide English.
What?
For correction. In the third executive session.
I know I didn't say the word negotiations.
Yeah, there's no such thing as general laws chapter negotiations.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say it, because I realized it was a typo in there.
Okay, so
Strike that.
the motion is without that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aye.
With that change, I am I as well. So I declare, as the chair of the meeting, I declare that for the reasons specified earlier, it's necessary for executive session. So I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
And roll call, Jeff? Aye. Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I'm I as well. So we're entering executive session. So welcome. This is the select board meeting open session for July 23rd, 2026. If people are wondering why I'm the one speaking rather than Steve Tsai, he couldn't be here this evening, so I'm stepping in to guide the conversation tonight. And let me first ask the assistant town administrator to read the open session agenda.
Good evening. After I read the agenda, the board can vote to amend or approve the agenda. I have a public comment tonight from Carol Marple. Items may be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. We have 11 items to discuss tonight. Item number 1 is the consideration of an easement relocation. Bob Murchison was on the agenda, but he notified us he can't be here tonight. Item number 2 is the yearly appointment of election workers for a term of September 1st, 2026 through August 31st, 2027. And our town clerk, John Doyle, will speak on that. Item number 3 is discussion and vote of early voting hours for September 1st, 2026 state primary, John Doyle. There will be a public safety committee update. Item number 5 is the consideration of appointments, the Conservation Commission, regarding Steve Scrimshaw for a reappointment to expire on June 15th, 2029, and a recycling committee appointment. Vicky Rellis for term to expire June 15th, 2029. And item number 6 is to discuss a draft comment letter to DCAM regarding the disposition of 0 Prospect Street. Item number 7 is the continued discussion of the transfer station operating procedures in a draft policy. Item number 8 is to discuss select board goals for FY 27. Item number 9 is a consent agenda with the TA payroll warrant. Item number 10 is select board reports, and item 11 is TA reports.
Thank you, Diane. The one change I had is for the recycling committee appointment, another application came in just today. That didn't get into our packets or on the agenda, so I want to propose or suggest that we defer that appointment for the recycling committee to our next meeting.
How many vacancies are there?
There's one.
There's one vacancy.
Just one.
Any other changes?
No, I would move approval as, with the one modification that you mentioned, putting the recycling committee on hold
Okay,
until the next meeting.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right,
I think we can actually just vote.
for open session,
Open session,
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
We have one public comment. Throw Marco, I just think you want to make a public comment. If you want to maybe pull the chair up and we'll get you closer to the microphone.
Okay,
Here, you can use it.
all right.
It's already up for current.
Okay.
That's great.
Well, I don't think this will be a long discussion. At the end of June, I looked at the town calendar to see what events were planned for the 4th of July and what town government might have come up with to celebrate our 250th anniversary of our country. And I was, quite frankly, shocked to find nothing. Absolutely nothing had been planned by my town government, and shame on me for not noticing sooner. But so I come to you to ask why.
So thanks for the comment. I don't think we can get into a long discussion about this. I don't know what the rules are. I don't think we can get to a long discussion about stuff.
It's not it's just a public
It's an
comment.
agenda. Yeah,
It's not on the agenda. It's a public comment.
So I think that I think your comment is appreciated, and thank you for coming and doing that. I think if there's going to be a conversation about why or what might be done in the future, I think we'd have to have that as an agenda item.
Great. I respectfully ask you to add that to your next agenda.
Okay.
Good refreshing.
I will comment further that a group of citizens came together and had a marvelous event right out here on town land, in spite of some suggestion that we not be allowed to do that. It was wonderful. We had over 100 people in attendance, lots of young families, seniors. We read aloud, a whole bunch of different people read aloud the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. And it was great to see all the kids running around with their flags and their bracelets, and the kids colored postcards that were sent to the governor. And it was really a great event, but I was very disappointed in my town government that you guys didn't put some things together. There was no parade, there were no field games, there was just nothing. And that's a sad commentary on our town government, I think. So thank you.
Thanks for the comment, Carol. Okay. So the next item is the consideration of easement relocation agreement, which is the relocation agreement on one of Bob Murchis' lots. He couldn't be here tonight. I spoke with him this afternoon, got a little bit of background. I think, Jeremy, you have a little bit of background. Maybe we can start a conversation, and if this is not controversial, go ahead. And if there are lots of questions, then we could defer. But to me, it seemed relatively straightforward. So Jeremy, do you want to just start off?
Yeah, these are actually two lots that Mr. Murchison has control over. One was subject to a special permit, the other was created by an A&R subdivision. There's an existing trail that crosses these two lots that currently has the benefit of an easement. Working with some of the land development boards, he's got approvals to do site improvements that would require relocating the trail. Hence, he's proposing to relocate the easements. That's what this lease agreement,
What property are we?
easement relocation agreements would do.
What,
177 Lake Street.
what?
177 Lake Street.
It's his
No,
property's
that's
on
not- I knew that.
No, it's Greenwood, Washington.
Greenwood.
It's Greenwood.
It's the Bailey. Yeah.
It's, yeah, it's an extension of the Bailey Trail into that neighborhood.
It's actually not the Bailey, it's the predecessor to the Bailey Trail, I think.
There's an existing trail that's there. That
Yeah,
would be relocated and
yeah.
these easements would be
Right.
Location. The Conservation Commission has. Do you have a question for council that is still pending? Pending is whether the select board need town meeting authorization to accept these easements.
Well, that was going to be my objection here. Because there's only the proposed agreements and not the existing agreements. I read this as requiring two things. First of all, a vote at town meeting, but this is conservation land. And this provision here for the Conservation Commission to relinquish conservation land, that requires an act of the legislature, requires a home rule petition and so on. But again, the file was incomplete, so I didn't have the.
Council was researching those two items.
Great. So I would suggest we defer.
Conclude our analysis, specifically the Article 97 question.
So because we don't know if we can do this, I would suggest we defer this to another meeting after we find out what town council says.
So that seems sensible. I mean, to me, the substance of it, moving the easement, there is an easement there currently, and shifting it over in a way that, at least as described to me this afternoon, sounded like kind of a win for the town and for trail use. That substantively it seemed fine. I take your point that there are some questions of what has to happen to actually do this.
It seems that all the boards are in agreement that the trail can be relocated and the easements would cover that. So the concept here, I think, is consensus on. It's fortunately there's some.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we also
Steps
have
in the
public
process.
comment on moving the easements too?
What's that?
Wouldn't we not also want public comment on moving easements?
Minor change.
Well, I mean, it's certainly got a lot of controversy
A
with it.
special permit process with the ZBA and some other public.
It's got to get approved by the legislature, I think.
Well,
Would have to be.
Concom went through their process.
If I could, in addition to the legal problem I have with this, I know that people donate land for conservation purposes and expect that that land will be forever conservation, because that's the way Article 97 and other provisions read. Anytime we sort of renege on that and say, well, gee, the land that you donated, we're going to use for something else, is really very troubling to me, because it discourages people to trust the town to keep their gift. Now, I don't know if it's a gift. I don't know where the land came from. I don't have answers to any questions, but I do know that it is very useful for people who have land like this land to feel comfortable donating it to the town of Sherborn, knowing that it will be forever kept as they intended it to be.
I mean, the spirit is still here, and that there's still an easement that connects the trail pieces.
Yeah, but it's different land.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like we should
Council will
defer.
help you with
Sounds like we
the
should.
question of Article
Mhm.
97.
Yeah, it sounds like we should defer the discussion until we get some answers from.
Well, that was my suggestion, but I'm making the bigger point that it's something that it should be done very, very carefully. In accordance with what the point Jeff was making. If you're going to renege, if you will, on a commitment to somebody, wherever this property came from, we should demonstrate to everybody that we will go through every requirements, be very careful, really be very cautious about doing such a thing.
Just to clarify,
Yeah.
for me, I know this trail. My understanding was that the trail is not on public land at all.
Not this section. This is an easement on.
So
Murchison's. I think it's an easement on.
This is all
property that Murchison owns.
Eastern on.
Yeah, it's on private land. So,
But it's an easement.
Concom approved it because of wetlands and other considerations.
right, yeah, and I would approve it too. But just, I would like to, it would be good if we saw the entire length of the trail so we understand exactly where it's located. And my next question is, does an easement, this is not a donation of land. It's a donation of it's an easement that already existed on these properties and that's simply being changed. So I'm not sure how land donation policies come into it, but it's clear that the easement, if it's going to be a useful easement, should be recorded in the deed with provisions to maintain it as a trail and provisions as to who's going to maintain it as a trail and what their rights of entry are. Things like that.
And that's spelled out in the proposed easement.
Okay.
So all conservation restrictions are easements. You don't find conservation easements, you find conservation restrictions. And to do a restriction, they have to be approved by the state. There's a whole process. And you have to prove, in order to get the conservation restriction approved, that this particular, every square inch in this has conservation value, not somewhere else on the lot. But you have to demonstrate to the Secretary of Environmental Affairs that this particular land.
So let's get some answers from town council and then we can come back to this. Okay, sounds good. All right, so our next item, yearly appointment of election workers and John Doyle. There you are. Go ahead, please, John.
Thank you, Selectman, and to you, the Select Board. So every year per MGL, we are required to submit a list of election workers that we would like to use for the September 1st through August 30th. So this would be election workers from September 1st of this year, 2026, through August 30th, 2027. This is, again, as per MGL, I believe in the packet. You all have the list of election workers. These are all people that have worked for, whether it's a state election, town meeting. They've served Sherborn in some way, shape, or form. And there might be one or two that are new and haven't, but would love to serve Sherborn in the future. So I ask for your consideration and approval of this list of election workers for the next 364 days.
Thanks, John. Second.
It's a long list. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very happy.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, excellent. Yeah.
We gotta find something other to give you volunteers for. I think.
So our next item is also with John Doyle, discussion of the vote in early voting hours for the September 1, 2026 state primary. John, go ahead, please.
Thank you again. So per MGL, again, referencing MGL. So we are required. So for early voting for the state primary, the state has said that all towns and cities, early voting during the weekdays, it defaults to regular business hours. However, for communities of because there's varying sizes of course throughout the state, we fall under the smallest category, 0 to 5,000 voters. We are required to actually just do 25% of our business hours per day, which would be 2 hours a day, which I don't think is enough. So I would like your approval to go to 3 hours per day. And again, the approval is for the weekdays hours is because in order to decrease from the regular business hours, so the 8 to 5 business hours that Sherborn has, we need the select board's approval. So these are hours that have been used in the past several state primaries. I've been in elections in other communities for the past 3-4 years, and it is my experience that state primaries do have a lower early in-person voting turnout. So it is the clerk's office. It's our opinion that it should be 3 hours, and that would be more than enough to allow folks to vote. We also do have a Saturday day, Saturday, August 22nd. That is going to be 4 hours. That isn't on the request for approval today because that's set per MGL and there's really no wiggle room with that. But so I'm really just here asking about the weekday hours. So again, I would ask for your consideration to approve.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Thanks, John. All
All right.
set.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Okay, our next item is an update from the Public Safety Committee. Come on, you grab a couple seats.
All right, just a quick little, I guess, intro to start. Just public safety committees generally met quarterly. It wasn't on our last agenda, but we had a discussion at the end of our meeting to put it on our next agenda to change the frequency of the meetings, make them more frequent. One of the things that's also has been historically done is 5 of the members are town employees, as the meetings have been at 4:30 in the afternoon, and we're going to put on their discussion to actually move them later at night. Really, it's been difficult for I think some residents who are here to come to all the meetings when they're in the afternoons. So that's going to be as we move forward. But we've also been having quite a bit of discussions about revolving traffic safety, which I'm sure you're all quite familiar with, as it's a concern around town. A lot of the focus lately has been Western Ave, and as you know, Sean has made some attempts at some improvements that some of the drivers haven't been so courteous to not drive on. At slowing traffic down on Western Ave and trying to make things safer. I will tell you anecdotally from the comments that the police officers are making, that drivers are driving slower. They're saying it's harder to pull people over there with the splitter islands that are there. But we're having all sorts of problems with the signs getting knocked over, cars hitting them, mainly because for what you feel is inattention. That people still aren't paying attention, even though there's things dividing the roads. We also still continue to have concerns about other things, trucks, the intersection of Brook Street. We had a recent motorcycle crash there that fortunately was not as serious as that could have been. But we have a couple of proposals that were discussed, one that was actually brought up by one of the Western Ave residents, and then one that Sean came up with as kind of an idea of what we could do to better delineate the splitter islands on Western Ave. So the first would be, and maybe I'll let you speak to some of it, is a proposed do a pilot project to see what the effects a 3-way stop would have at Brook Street. I will start by saying that not something generally I have been in favor of, but I think there's a compelling argument to at least try it. 3-way stops are generally not recommended as traffic calming. Some of the other things that have been done and shrinking the lanes and the splitter islands, they are. But everything doesn't always work. So a proposal was brought to us to attempt a 3-way stop. We had quite a bit of discussion about it, and the committee did vote to bring it forward to the select board to do a 90-day pilot project. Before I keep going, do you want to talk a little bit about it, as it's right in front of your house?
If you'd like me to.
Yeah, it might be good because you can give a little bit of, if that's okay with you, to give a little bit of.
Just if you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. My name is Dan Petrosinelli. Myself and my partner, Dorothy Ferranti, recently acquired the home at 266 Western Ave. We have, in the last 2.5 years, loved the environment. And by the way, I do want to emphasize, as a resident on the street, I respect all my neighbors. We all have a difference of opinion. And I just want to say that what the town has tried to do so far, I commend the efforts. I want to tell you that we sincerely appreciate it. The efforts may not align all the time with the recommendations that the residents have, but we sincerely appreciate the efforts you've made to try. And Sean in particular, him and his team, Chief Galvin as well, the efforts you've made to try to slow the traffic down, it is working. We have seen a significant drop in the speed of traffic. The corner, one of the things that we had suggested, three-way stop sign, because we were looking for not just from a traffic calming perspective, but more from protecting the pedestrians, the line of sight. It is a blind corner. We've had neighbors that have tried to cut trees down on the corner, trying to give access to it. And it's the trucks and the cars, hence the recent accident we had with the motorcycle coming down a hill. People can't see around the corners. So on Brook Street, there is a stop sign. And even with that stop sign, people coming down weren't looking. And I think that's one of the reasons why that accident happened with the motorcycle. So what we were looking for is, or the suggestion was, and asked, is could we try at least to see what stop signs would do? I know there was some concerns about noise with a stop sign. I will tell you that we are right there. We are the abutters. Our property is at the corner of Brook Street and Western Ave. So we experience this on a daily basis, every day, in the house, out in the front yard. And it is dangerous the way people come around the corners. A week after, just recently after we had this meeting and I had asked and made the recommendation on stop signs, there was a cyclist that was going up, heading west toward Framingham. And from the trucks moving around that corner fast, they cut it so sharply, rather than sometimes slow down. They cut it sharply. They've created a rut on the side of Western Ave. There was a cyclist going up, as many cyclists do. It's a great street. And there was a car coming up, and that car was going too fast, didn't see the cyclist on the corner because it is a blind corner. That cyclist went into the rut, fell off of the bicycle. The car did stop, thankfully. But then as the cyclist is trying to get back on the street, the car basically just blew right past him. And I went over to make sure that he was okay. So with a stop sign, I feel that wouldn't have happened. The noise, I'll address that again. Coming around the corner, it's an uphill. They accelerate going up the hill, heading west toward Framingham. The noise isn't going to stop. Whether it's trucks or cars, they're accelerating, trying to pick up speed and momentum. Coming down, trucks especially heading toward Sherborn, they're jake braking. And then even though there's signs that said it's not permitted, it's very loud. And again, they're trying to slow so they can come into the corner. So noise, I don't think is really going to change. And again, we're the closest ones to the abutters. So I do appreciate the efforts. I hope it works out. If it doesn't, I understand, but I do appreciate you at least trying another measure. And I'm happy to offer more comments. I did have a public statement that I made at the last meeting that can always be read again if you'd like me to.
And we look at it by trying it as a pilot. We can set it as a maximum of 90 days and then, and evaluate it. But, it's going to be constant evaluation. If we find in 45 days that absolutely this is not the right thing, it's 3 stop signs and some temporary paint marking that we'll be able to move. So we just feel like it's a low impact, in terms of the resources required by the town to hopefully make a big impact.
So you recommend this?
We voted unanimously as a committee to try this as a pilot.
Thank you for
the opportunity. I appreciate it.
So can I make a motion?
yeah, I have a couple of questions, but
It's kind of a no-brainer, but fine, go ahead.
I was just interested, Chief, you had said that, you're often not generally in favor of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I was just interested. This sounds fine to me. So this is not I don't support this. This is just trying to understand. What would the concerns be about doing this?
Some of it is the constant stop and go with the traffic, and the noise. So you're going to get trucks shifting through gears and those type of things. And it's also where areas that aren't necessarily set up. I always go back to one particular roadway I was very familiar with in the city of Marlborough, and they installed, I think, 7 three-way stops along the road to try and discourage cut-through traffic. And it really wasn't necessarily being utilized to calm the traffic flow that was there. It was because of new construction that was new people coming in and commuting to work, was trying to eliminate the traffic. And I will say that I did recommend, and we did install 2 three-way stops when I was the police chief in the town of Berlin. So we did do it as well, but it wasn't always my first choice. I think there's a lot of other measures that can be done, and we've tried that. Putting a road on a diet, which is narrowing the lanes, the medians of the splitter islands. There's a lot of things that you can try, and there's actually there's a manual on it for things to do. But I think we're at the point now where we got to maybe try something different.
So can I make a motion to approve the recommendation for this trial period for 90 days as recommended?
Well, thank you.
I'd like to ask a question before I vote. How are you going to evaluate the results of the trial?
So a lot of it's going to be talking to the neighbors. That's going to be a huge, important part of it. But it's also going to be, we're going to be observing as the police department. We're going to be down there. We're going to be enforced. We're going to have to do enforcement to try and change behaviors. And we're going to see what it does to the traffic patterns. We have nobody probably even noticed it, a small traffic counter that was right at the intersection for 2 weeks. So we're able to collect data. We're able to collect vehicle speeds. So we have some of that information that we just collected. As the stop goes out, it'll be put back out there. It'll collect some more data, and we'll be able to make comparisons on the vehicle speeds, on where we are with 85th percentile, what the vehicles are traveling, and really give us an idea of how it's affecting the area.
You'll be able to count how many posts are on Nextdoor about it.
We'll be doing that.
That would be the anecdotal.
Is there a
I have a
second
question.
motion?
I'll second his motion, but I have a question first. What is the intersection now? It's just one stop?
Just a stop sign on Brook Street.
Western is a.
Yes.
Because I would worry about, if there's not that many on Brook Street, you're sort of slowing down Western Ave for a smaller subset of.
Right, but it's more, and I think that was part of the explanation. It's more than just for the traffic that pulls out of Brook Street. It's for the other things that happen on Western Ave as well with that corner.
Okay.
Mr. Moore, if I might comment, I'm sorry. I will say, again, experience for the last 2.5 years, I don't know what it was like before then. I can say the traffic has significantly increased.
Yeah.
I think if you do a GPS search, the cut through on Brook Street is maybe 1/10 of a mile shorter, but people just following GPS, they don't care. The traffic on Brook Street is quite heavy. And I think if it is that easy to track traffic, I think you'd be surprised at just how much comes up and down Brook Street as well.
We're tracking Brook Street right now.
It's Google Maps. Google Maps is what's doing it. I have a friend that moved out of Walpole because whenever there was a Patriots game,
It is.
Route 1 would back up. So their little tiny neighborhood, Google Maps made that the route to get to Foxborough Stadium. And
Could have been getting $30.
it was all driven by Google Maps.
Yeah, the maps do not show that Brook Street is a very narrow.
What's the place? So I understand.
Southern Ave is a residential, not a residential,
They sold their house because.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
No, but I did second it. So.
Yeah.
Just one final comment.
Yeah.
I'm aware of a town that installed 3 or 4-way stop signs on every intersection for like a mile, and having to go through that frequently. I don't appreciate the delays, but my speed is somewhere around 5 to 10 miles an hour. I'm not going anywhere fast.
Right.
And it makes it a lot safer for pedestrians.
Right.
I'll remind everyone, we did do this at Woodland and Mill when there was, a lot of discussion with those neighbors,
Yeah.
with the the speeds, and the cut through traffic there, because obviously there is a law. And there's virtually no complaints ever since we put that in. And that was a single stop that went to a three-way.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment, when sightlines are a big problem, which they are at this, a three-way stop should make a big difference. Should they? We'll see.
All right, so we
Looking
have
forward
a
to the
motion and a second. All in favor? Okay.
There's a
Very good.
second proposal, and I think maybe I'll let Sean speak to that around the splitter islands.
This is more of an update. I don't really think we need a vote on this, but just an update to remind you that we're still spending money that came from town meeting a couple of years ago. That's what we built the islands with. Have done most of the work with. And I think the last piece, an improvement for the islands we're going to try is the ground down reflectors, like you'd see either between the lane delineators on the Mass Pike. New Hampshire does a lot of that work on their double yellows on the long winding roads. A fair amount of people hitting the islands are oddly, they're probably looking at their phone. They're not paying attention. So we're looking at the best way to strategically place those. Normally as a lane divider, they're just every 40 feet. You just hit them and it's repetitive. We'll probably break them and then increase the frequency as you get closer to the island. And if you choose to ignore it, you're going to hit an island. But we're hoping that'll have
This is
little
a good
impact.
idea.
That sounds helpful.
They probably would be hitting their other cars. The islands weren't there. Is my reaction.
It's true. They would at least be in the other travel lane.
Yeah.
It's a design defect in phones that you can't read your emails and drive at the same time.
Well, no, they can. They are. That's the problem.
They're trying. It's not working out so.
Some of them aren't that good at it.
And Sean, this is something yours to you.
Yeah, we're planning on doing,
about.
we're gonna do that and then, refresh the line painting and everything else up there. But that's gonna make that improvement.
And just one other comment, Mary, you mentioned it, you talked to Ed about sightlines. So one thing I will comment on is, and you'll probably all notice, the highway department is doing a lot on the sides of the roads right now and improving sightlines in a lot of places. We had a crash that may have been, the road was narrowed and, that's been opened up, and there's been quite a few other spots where there's been some tough views that Chris has been out in the machine widening the roadways. So doing a good job with that.
A lot of maintenance on machines to try to keep up with it.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Thank
you. Chief, thank you, Sean. Our next item is appointment to the Conservation Commission. And it would be for Steve Spurgeon for a term to expire 8/15/2029.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Is he here?
No, I told,
But I know him very, very well.
I don't see him.
He's a science teacher. He's
I don't see him.
known him for a long time.
He's at the Cambridge School of Western.
And it's a
reappointment.
reappointment.
Yeah, he's already on the committee.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Steve.
So I think we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, very good. And the other appointments will delay until a future meeting since they've gotten a little more complicated.
Okay.
All of them? Thought there was,
So there's the recycling committee, one that when we set the agenda, we agreed we would hold off because we got a new application in just today.
Oh, okay.
And in our packets, there's a recycling committee appointment material, which is not on the agenda. Thought that would be best to, since there are two people for one spot, thought that would be best to do. We could have a fuller discussion with the full board here. And that we just wait a couple weeks and do that one in a couple of weeks as well.
okay.
Oh, the ZBA, what was the one on the ZBA? Did we
We can do that.
huh?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's the ZBA that we're putting off.
I misspoke. I misspoke. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
The recycling committee one we took off when we were sending the agenda. It's the ZBA one that was in our packet, but before the agenda was finalized, there was a decision to hold off on that
Okay, all right,
because there are two candidates for one position,
okay.
and thought that would be best to do when we have the full.
Okay,
full-
yeah,
full-
yeah, all right,
full
that's fine,
board.
all right.
Okay, so our next item is to talk about the draft comment letter to DCAM regarding Zero Prospect Street.
Yeah, Zero Prospect Street is a state-owned parcel that the Commonwealth is proposing to surplus for its for housing, for development of housing. As part of that process, it's a new process under the Affordable Homes Act. As part of that process, they've reached out to the town for comment on this proposal. We reached out to all the boards and committees and have received comment letters from the planning board and the Conservation Commission. The Board of Health also has a draft letter that we should be receiving shortly. Marion very helpfully started drafting a cover letter for the select board, which you'll see in your packet. And you see the planning board and Conservation Commission letters as well. When we receive the Board of Health letter, we also attach it to the cover letter.
Kind of like we do for, any kind of proposal that comes, so it's 40B or whatever.
I have no letters.
What did you say?
I have no letters at all. So we sent them a separate cover.
They were sent under separate cover by email.
Separate cover from my email. Sorry, Paul.
I have a copy of it right here, Bob. I'll give it to you right now.
Is there any public safety, like a police and fire looking at traffic?
Yeah.
Do?
The planning board has made some comments regarding.
Okay.
It's a separate cover before.
Okay.
This would be due, the comment period would, ends August 3rd.
Yeah, soon.
So it sounds like what we would want to, given that it's not probably quite finalized, we would want to perhaps conditionally approve this with
Just authorized chairman.
Jeremy to pull the pieces together. And
Yeah. It's currently, for your chair to sign, but.
So you in conjunction with Steve. So I thought the letter was very good. Like, caught all the right points and
Select board letter.
yeah, the select board letter was very good, caught all the right points and was well crafted. So I'd be very comfortable having Jeremy and Steve, and I guess you were one of the key drafters, so
Yeah.
having
Done a lot.
this work out. If the three of you could just work out final words, I'd be very comfortable with that.
Do you want to make the motion or you
Carol,
want
have
to?
your hand up.
Daryl, go ahead, please.
Hi, I just wanted to confirm, it sounds like you're preparing a cover letter and then attaching whatever the board send in. I had
Yes,
been preparing this as comments that you could use as you chose, but I can shift direction on that if what we send should be standalone on its own as well.
I think the intention, Daryl, is to attach each of the letters that comes in behind it, but the select board letter on top as a cover would try to touch on the most important points.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
What we might do to improve the cover letter a bit is to refer to the comments of the other boards.
Yeah.
Because, I sort of wrote the same things that they wrote
Right.
somewhat, but good to have the,
Cover letter references them by attachment, but we can make it more explicit in the text.
yeah, I think we could make it more explicit.
It's
This would-
filtered down, basically. Yeah.
Every couple of weeks, we have a meeting of all the staff of the land development groups. And at the last meeting this past Wednesday, we reviewed this prior to the letters.
Oh, they
So a
did.
lot of staff is also offered.
I don't have a letter from the Board of Health.
It hasn't come.
We don't
hasn't come
either.
yet. That is coming soon.
Well, I sort of have a general request that I really can't vote on something I haven't read. I haven't read any of this. So I'm wondering, do we have to vote on it tonight or can we do it?
Due August 3rd before
We
the
have a
next
deadline.
meeting, so
Oh,
I mean, I guess
I mean, I trust you completely.
I was going to suggest that I think the plan, at least what I was contemplating, is that Jeremy, Steve, and Marianne would work to finalize the letter. And when you've had a chance to take a careful look at it, if you have thoughts and comments, I'm sure they would welcome your input.
Okay.
Mhm. By what date? Let's see. Today is the 23rd. So within a few days, we'd need your comments.
Yeah. And
I mean, today's Thursday. Yeah, we should have it finalized early next week at the latest, right? So that's your deadline. Okay.
Mary, do you want to make the motion, or do you for someone else does if you're?
I wrote the letter, so maybe someone else should make it.
Oh, I would move to, because you and I have written a million of those letters.
That's true.
Yeah, I would make the motion to support the transmittal letter with the attachments from each of the boards.
Right, I second.
And with Jeremy, Steve, and Marianne just taking care of the final.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, all right, very good. So that gets that set. Okay, our next item, which I think is why some people are here tonight, is to continue our discussion of transfer station operating procedures and potential draft policy. Let me set that up with a few general comments, and then we'll open things up first for select board members, and then for anybody from town who wants to offer some input and views. So a number of people, just looking at who's here in the audience and online, a number of people have heard many of the prior conversations. I think there are some people who perhaps haven't heard all of those prior conversations, so just a little bit of setup. Oh, I should mention Steve Tsai, who couldn't be here tonight, expressly said to me he would watch the video, so everything that's said tonight he will quickly watch and absorb as well to make sure that he's got the latest on what people are thinking. So the way we got into this is that the town is really an outlier in compared to our peer communities. If you do a comparison, as Jeremy and team did, to something like 15 neighboring and peer communities, we're an outlier in really two ways. One is, what is the cost, either per household or for towns of comparable size? What is the total cost of running the transfer station and managing waste disposal in town? And we are way at the high end on cost. And the other dimension, and then similarly, we're higher on tonnage. There are varieties of reasons for that, but if you look at tonnage per household, we're again an outlier and significantly higher than our neighboring and peer towns. And we're also an outlier on policies, in that in terms of we're one of our rare set of communities that accept commercial waste at transfer station, and we're the only one that accepts commercial waste that doesn't charge fees. The other couple that accept commercial waste charge fees. We don't, and we're one of the rare ones that allows commercial waste at the transfer station. We're open many more days than in other communities. Some communities transfer stations open 2 days a week, some 3. We're kind of a rarity and outlier again in being open 5 days a week. And all of these, and we're also an outlier in our swap shop policy, in that we are in this comparison group. We are the only community that allows non-residents into the swap shop, and that has a lot of implications, which we can talk about a little later. So, we're an outlier on policies, and presumably in part because of that, we're an outlier on costs and tonnage. So with that backdrop, I think the select board thought collectively that we should take a look at transfer station policy, adopt a more formal transfer station policy. Things have been done pretty informally with we kind of do it because we've always done it that way, and that perhaps some of these things that we've always done, we should write down and be explicit about how we do it and what the rules are, so that those running the transfer station have a clear set of instructions rather than question comes up and, well, what's the policy? And it's not really written down. So I think there's a desire to move towards a policy. Jeremy and team have been working on a draft policy, which I think is not really ready for focus yet because that gets into a lot of specifics. And before getting to those specifics, I think there are some higher level policy decisions that need to be made, which then would kind of guide what direction it to go. So we've had a couple discussions at prior meetings, gotten a lot of input. I'm really happy to see some people here tonight who weren't at those prior meetings and hoping that we can hear a range of views. In terms of that discussion, I'm hoping for a couple things. One, I'd like this to stay fairly high level on these big picture policy questions. There are a lot of small details that would need to be worked out to have a complete comprehensive policy. And in the fullness of time, all of those will get discussed and worked out. But until those higher level policy decisions are made, it's hard to know where to go on the specifics. So I think that some of the key issues on my mind that I think would be especially valuable to delve into and kind of get a sense of what are people's views is how to handle commercial waste. Again, we're an outlier relative to what other towns do. I think there's a sub question there about how to handle agricultural waste. There's the swap shop set of questions, which I think that there are a number there, but I think the biggest overall policy question is residents or non-residents being allowed at the swap shop. And then there's also a question about how many days open that we think the swap shop should be. So looking forward to hearing comments from people in town. I think we'll see if Jeremy has anything to add to that. We'll start with select board, and would be great to the extent that we can start sharing views on some of these things, kind of see whether there's a consensus that goes in a particular direction. So I think that would help inform how a policy might be put together. All right, so I jumped in and did all that setup. Jeremy, what would you like to add to that?
Well, no, I think that was a great summary and sort of brings it to where we are now. Just expanding a little bit about Dan referenced a group that I've been holding. I just wanted to point out who's in that. That's Dan is select board rep on that group. Charlie Tyler, chair of the recycling committee. Sean Clean, Penny May. And Amelia Landau, your sustainability manager, are all part of that working group. We've met a handful of times, most recently this week, sort of talking about what you had for discussions at your last meeting and what information we might be able to gather to help support your discussion. So we stand ready once you have more discussions on the bigger policy questions to help you with a more detailed policy.
And I just thank Jeremy for the effort and work that's gone into this. And there are a number of people in town who've been providing input and information at the working group that's been quite valuable and helpful as well. So let's start with select board. Comments, questions, discussion, opinions, views. I think I've made my views pretty clear in the past, so I'm not going to start with repeating things I've said before, but.
I guess I have some ideas, but maybe it's better to go through the topics. In other words, I don't want just me going down and saying ideas on several things. Maybe we should approach maybe not all the open items, but some of them. And would that be a better way to facilitate it?
I mean, I had kind of distilled this down to the three topics. I mean, there are many on that list.
Three again, then?
So I'm thinking of how to handle commercial waste.
Yeah.
And agricultural waste is kind of a sub piece of that. How to handle the swap shop, residents, non-residents.
Yeah.
And, how many days open should it be? There are a lot of other items on that list that
Okay,
will be
that's
answered.
fine.
But I think those three are the kind of highest level policy decisions on which Jeremy, the working group, would need some guidance to begin pulling a policy together, which will then lead to all of the more detailed.
Well, I guess my concern on those three topics of commercial waste, we've seen that very few towns do it, and the ones that do charge for it.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the source of our commercial waste, even though we've discussed it. We have the tonnage now, but I don't know who would be impacted by changing the policy on commercial waste. maybe that's my not paying attention in the past, but I think we need to identify who would be affected by it.
Yeah, I agree. I have the same question. What's the definition of commercial waste?
Yeah.
I think that the easy answer to that is, any waste developed by a commercial establishment, meaning a for-profit, enterprise, would, be a commercial enterprise. I think the agricultural waste is a little harder to develop. I think the data question is a really interesting one. I think the challenge is, well, one, there aren't that many commercial enterprises in
That's my
town.
point.
So we all sort of know more or less who they are. Not all of them, they don't all use transfer stations. Some do, some have other methods.
Yeah.
But we sort of know who they all are. I think, in terms of specifics, we could ask Wayne for a list of, the customers that the commercial customers they pick up from. And I think we have a general sense of who are some of the other folks bring things, but there isn't really other than here's kind of a list of businesses in town. I don't think we have a means to isolate, what is the tonnage being generated by those. I don't think that's a question that we can reasonably answer. We could do things like what are the size of dumpsters that different folks have, and try to approximate it that way. But I think it's a question that isn't, I don't know, Jeremy, you may have a thought on this, but I think it's a question that it's not going to have a super precise answer. We do something very different than other towns. But I don't think we're going to be able to have an answer of it's X tons a year coming from commercial, because it just, the way our operation is set up, we're not doing anything that would make it
I
possible.
understand that, but Paul knows the history, but we're trying to support, we have also way too few commercial businesses in town already, so we're trying to understand. When I say who would be impacted, I don't mean it's an individual company, although it's such a small town, but we want to know, are we going to force a business to decide not to be in town anymore because, it's prohibitive.
Well, I thought it was really interesting that our last meeting, that Carol Robbins, who would probably be running the operation that perhaps is generating more commercial waste than any other, and that's just a guess on my part, that her reaction was what she needs is a clear set of rules and lead in.
Yeah.
And that, if there were a decision for the transfer station to be strictly residential, not saying that that's what we would do, but if that were the decision, in other towns, businesses, have other ways of handling their waste. And her thing was kind of, well, we could do something different. We would just need some clear guidance and the lead-in time.
Same thing, we had one person who owns a fairly large farm in town say that they don't send any waste to the transfer station. They're only just their household waste.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I mean about, I don't know how much the farm waste is. I think commercial is the biggest factor there. The swap shop, originally that was developed because we were basically throwing couches and everything else into the dumpster, So the swap shop wasn't intended. The swap shop is intended to recycle materials instead of throwing them out, as people know well. And my issue there is different than other people. I like having outside residents, not necessarily because they're outside residents, but I suspect, and we can probably have the data, that most of the things that are dropped off at the swap shop are from residents in town, and most of the things are not used by residents in town.
I don't think we actually know that.
I know, but I think that's an important thing because in other words, if we find out that almost all this is hypothetical, almost all the things that are taken away from the swap shop, it's not by residents. No, I have way too much crap in my house. I would never go pick anything up there. It's probably terrific, better than the stuff I have now, but I think we need to look at the people from outside of town. There's been some of the meetings where people say we should let anything inside of town. I think they're doing us a huge favor, even if they're selling it on eBay or whatever they're doing with it. They're doing us a favor because otherwise it would end up in a dumpster. Now, I proposed this at an earlier meeting. We can do different things to see what that volume is. Maybe we allow outside of town residents once a week to take stuff up so that the swap shop isn't overfilled with stuff. But I think the outside residents thing is actually a mischaracterization of the problem. The problem is, where is the swap shop people donations? Where are their donations going? I suspect it's very few going to residents in town because everyone I know has too much stuff in their house already. So the outside issue is a mischaracterization of the problem. The problem is, how do we dispose of things in the swap shop?
So I think there are two other issues that relate to that. One is, given the staffing at the transfer station,
Yeah.
I think there isn't actually an ability to monitor who's bringing things there. And so if a non-resident arrives to bring stuff,
Yeah,
I don't think the volunteers are set up to scan for
True.
stickers.
true.
And so my hunch, again, speculation, don't know, is that plenty of non-residents bring stuff because, people have stuff they want to get rid of. Hey, I can bring it to Sherborn because no other town allows non-residents in their swap shop. We are the only one in the area that does that. The other concern that I've raised is kind of an unintended consequence of allowing non-residents in, which is, again, despite, I think, the best efforts of the folks operating transfer station, I think they cannot completely monitor who's there and who's not there because it's swap shop, non-residents can come. And I think somebody could come with bags of garbage, look up the hill, see the attendants busy, slip up the hill, dispose of their garbage. And if we went to a residents only policy, as every other community does, then, at the gate, it would be sticker only. You can't come on the property unless you have a sticker. And so by changing the swap shop policy, I think we actually could solve some of the challenges with monitoring who's is and isn't at the transfer station. So I think there'd be
I didn't follow your last point. How would changing the swap shop policy?
So my contention is that we have non-residents who are sneaking in and getting dumping their trash at the transfer station. So that's speculation. Despite, I think, the best.
So what's the solution?
So
Check for stickers at the entrance.
check for stickers at the gate.
So now we have to have an employee at the gate all the time.
Well, I think there are a number of things. One, the sign that says stickers only could move to the gate.
Yeah.
Two, I think we could get a camera to monitor there, and could hire someone to be there for a month to turn people away until people learn that there's a new policy. I think, there's a question of if we have a new policy, how to enforce it. That's a whole separate set of issues. But I think setting a policy of residents only might have the unintended benefit of solving some of the other problems at the transfer station with monitoring who is or isn't there.
But
So-
I think it will, to my earlier point, it
Yeah.
will create a problem in that the swap shop will be much fuller.
Trade-offs.
Yeah. Well,
Trade-offs.
it's more than a
Yeah.
trade-off. It's a problem.
No, but I think the status quo is a problem too, because I think, somebody can come on and say, hey, I'm just going to the swap shop.
Yeah.
And the swap shop volunteers are not monitoring access.
No, I know that.
And so I think, there can be issues, again, because, the attendants have much more work to do there.
No, I
They just monitoring access.
All right, whatever.
That's- Marion, go ahead.
Yeah, regarding the swap shop, I think it's part of a bigger problem. And that is that people bring things to the swap shop that are okay, maybe marginally useful. And the swap shop people, don't want to turn stuff away. I mean, they want to have it available, and that's what they should do. But knowing that a lot of the stuff that's left really is not very useful and becomes trash. So that's a job for the swap shop to decide what their level of quality is of stuff they'll accept if they really want it to be a swap shop and not another way to dump things that you don't need anymore. So that's kind of on the swap shop people, and I don't know what to say about that because
I don't understand that question though, if you don't mind me asking, because previously when we didn't have a swap shop, everything was dumped. If you were only talking about residents of town, we should be indifferent with whether they put it in a dumpster or the swap shop. We want the person to put in the swap shop if someone else will use it.
Right.
Prior to that, residents of town were just putting everything in the dumpster.
Right. I'm not saying we shouldn't have a swap shop. I think the swap
Yeah.
shop's a good idea. But there are things that accumulate in the swap shop that really, need a repair, or you get piles of old stuff that
But that-
nobody
Then
wants.
we can just put that in the dumpster.
That's what
Before.
happens. That's what
I
happens.
think there's also the option of revising our fee schedule. And for instance, we don't have fees for furniture. We
Yeah.
could, and
Mhm.
it could be whether it goes to the swap shop or it goes up
This
the
is
hill.
only for the
There's
swap
a
shop.
fee.
We have fees for mattresses.
But we don't have fees for a sofa, for instance. There's no fee wherever it goes.
Yeah.
Whether it goes swap, and so
Right.
it could be most other towns, have
Yeah.
a much more extensive fee schedule.
But we have fees for things like the air conditioners and
Yes,
all
yes.
kinds of
But for the
Not
kinds
the
of things
swap
that go
shop.
to the swap shop, like the
That's right.
sofa chair, we could have fees whether it goes to the swap shop or up the hill. And
Well, yes
that's-
and no. If we charge a fee, are they just gonna put the dumpster as trash then? That's why we create the swap shop.
Yes, but if it's a crappy piece, it's gonna end up there anyways, and then we recoup part of the cost of disposing
Before it
of it.
goes in the dumpster, you sure.
No, I don't see it that way at all, Dan. If they're gonna charge me $25 to drop off a couch and it's a decent shape, I might decide to just put a dumpster, and I don't wanna spend $25, to do
But
that.
it's $25 either way, whether it goes in the dumpster or to the swap shop.
No, if I go to the dumpster, you're saying that
We could,
we have to monitor the dumpster
And
now too?
we do that already because, if you want to bring an old appliance or a TV, you can't just throw it in the dumpster. The attendant will see that and say, there's a fee for that, and there's a whole process.
I'm not sure.
Again, most other towns do collect fees for things like furniture.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Right. So my other general point is not so much about the swap shop, is that I don't know what degree this is a problem for most people in town, but everyone I know in town has this problem from time to time. They have waste that's not small enough to go in the waste, in the landfill dumpster. It's not big enough or good enough to go to the swap shop. Where do they put it? Maybe some minor demolition stuff, a bunch of boards and wall stuff, or just junk that's not like, you don't want it to go into a landfill, but on the other hand, you don't know where to put it. And basically, we get a nice little informational bulletin from the recycling committee as to what can be accepted, what's not accepted, but no information on what to do with the things that's not accepted. So I think maybe it's the recycling committee, maybe it's someone else, should give residents a lot more information about what their options are. For old furniture, it's not only the swap shop. You can take it to Savers. You can take it to Restore in Holliston. There are a lot of better places it could go where it's more likely to be reused. So I don't think we should rely on the swap shop necessarily to service the underserved community around us, although totally in favor of doing what we can to support them, but it shouldn't be all on the swap shop. So in a sense, I'm arguing for limiting what goes to the swap shop and making residents more aware of what their options are for other stuff. I think we all run into that. We have something we want to throw away. We really don't want to put it in the dumpster. It's not all metal, so it can't go in the metal, bin? What do we do with it?
Well, I think the problem there is people might not want to drive to 2 towns over to go to one of those other.
Well, if they
It's
can't take it
convenient.
to Sherborn, maybe they'll drive.
Yeah.
Paul, go ahead.
Well, I can tell you where it goes. People are dumping on my property,
Mhm.
and I have to have my crews clean up.
I believe it.
And it's not just cans and bottles, it's porno stuff. There's the whole toilet
Yeah.
was tossed over the fence. So anytime the more you make that restricted, the transfer station restricted, the more people are going to dump anywhere they can. This is a rural community. There's a lot of open space. There's a lot of trees, forests, all that kind of stuff. I have a farm, and I guess people are used to throwing this stuff over the fence. I don't like it. That's not an invitation to do it. It's a request that they stop doing it. But they do it rather than drive to another community. They do it because maybe they're being charged too much, or maybe there's something at the transfer station that's preventing them from taking it there. I don't know why. But the effect is that somebody like myself have got to have my people, my employees out there cleaning up stuff that they shouldn't be doing. So another point I want to make is the reason why the select board years ago approved the policy of non-residents at the swap shop was because the people who were running the swap shop came in and said, and we have a problem. There's some stuff that nobody takes.
Mhm.
What do you want us to do with it? You want us to throw the stuff that nobody takes into the trash? And the sense of the board was, if we opened it up to outsiders, there was a greater chance that that trash would disappear. And that's what we wanted. Not for people to bring trash there, but rather the idea was to open the swap shop so that people can come and take things. And the message was, please take Sherborn's trash. So if people lined up and took all of Sherborn's trash, we would have no trash fees at all. They would all disappear. But that was the logic, and that board voted in favor of it to see if it worked. And again, it was to deal with the solitary sofa that's been there 10 years and nobody wants. And yet it's too bulky to move. And it's, what do we do with it?
So Paul, why do you think every other community has made a different decision than we have on that? Any sense of that?
Some of our trash is higher quality than what you see.
Our peer communities include Dover, Carlisle, Lincoln.
I don't know.
I don't know if you've worked with any of those communities that would have any insights into why they've made a different decision than we have.
I don't. All I know is we said it's to try it on a trial basis, and then it seemed to work that the volume of stuff that was disappearing increased, and so people were happy with that notion. So if you limit it to residents, the corollary would be, if not limiting it, increase the disposal outside of town, then limiting it to residents is going to decrease.
What would you think about the idea that I think Jeff had suggested of open to non-residents a day a week or a day a month or something like that?
I mean, that's fine. I generally agree with stuff that Jeff is saying, but let me make a few other points.
Sure.
The business about construction waste. Why did we vote to do that? And why we wanted to do that was that at that time and in that culture, there were people who did home improvements, some of them themselves. Some people actually took out hammers and nails, spent their spare time improving their houses. And the projects weren't big enough to get a dumpster. Get a dumpster, you might put a couple of cubic feet of pieces in there, but people like to fiddle with their houses. Now, things may be different now culturally, but it was, we're a rural community. People like tinkering with their houses. And the select board recognized that we actually wanted to encourage people to improve their houses. Because the thought was if people improve their houses, then the assessed value of the houses go up and they get more taxes.
Could I comment on that? Oh, sure. Yes, I think people still improve their own houses here sometimes. But it comes back to the point I was trying to make before. When you have a small amount of construction waste, what do you do with it? Our transfer station is not set up for that. So we need alternatives. People need to know where to take it.
I think if I could just comment, Paul, as well, but I think there's a distinction that there's the do-it-yourselfer who does a home repair project, and certainly I would think it'd be fine for that material to come to the transfer station. I'm concerned about a contractor who lives in town. I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but as a hypothetical, a contractor who lives in town has a Sherborn transfer station sticker. They're doing commercial jobs. And they have a transfer station sticker, so they just bring, they do it, they do a kitchen reno, well, they just bring it to the transfer station. And, I think we try to have a limit of only 2 barrels, but again, I think the attendants are busy and can't watch everybody who comes through all the time. And so I think the concern about construction materials is not at all trying to prevent the do-it-yourselfer from bringing a small amount of construction, materials or what have you to the transfer station. I think it's really thinking about making it very clear that anything bigger than that, if you're having your kitchen redone, the contractor should get a dumpster and have it taken care of. I think that's more what we're just trying to reinforce.
Well, that may be a good way to go in terms of size. The 2 barrels, again, came from a comment from an audience member. Who's saying that's what I do, and so we had to pick something.
Sure.
And 2 barrels. I don't know if people use barrels anymore. They maybe just throw it in the back of a pickup truck. But so I'm dating myself a little bit. But the idea was that this is a service for our residents. We want to see homes improved. We want to make life easy for our people. And having small quantities didn't seem like it would be a big deal.
I think the challenge is that somehow our amalgamation of policies have gotten us to a point where our transfer station is much more expensive than in other towns, and we pay to remove a lot more waste than other comparable communities do. That's where we've gotten to. And that's
Commercial waste is the biggest piece of that.
It is only Sherborn residents that are allowed to drop off waste, right?
that is correct.
I don't know.
And
Yes.
If we assume that that's pretty much the case, then the stuff dumped down your farm or along my road, Prospect Street, I doubt is coming from Sherborn residents anyway. I think that's a separate. So probably not related to the transfer station.
Well, I wasn't going to examine the toilet to see if I could get testing to see.
No, but I'm just throwing that in.
I wonder if people have thoughts on the question of number of days open. We're open 5, which is more than most other.
I guess when we have the staff working there, they're doing things while they're open. In other words, I think we have to sort of define what open means. In other words, they already have to be there to do things that they were dropped off yesterday. You know what I mean? I'm not sure.
Yeah, again, we're an outlier compared to other towns, and And it's, paying staff time for people to be there,
But
monitoring,
that's not,
operating the
I don't think
compact.
you understood my question, or I didn't phrase it correctly. They might need to be there anyway, even if we didn't have people coming in, like one.
I don't know if that's considered, I mean.
I don't know if that's true or not,
We
but,
can hear, we'll hear in a little bit,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, from folks.
well, then I'll wait for that, but they're not, they do things there like sorting things and doing things that they can have people coming in, but they're doing other aspects of their jobs. They're not only there to
I mean,
oversee people coming in.
again, we're really different than other communities.
I don't,
They
we're
tend to be
different in a whole lot of ways.
But-
That doesn't bother me.
But we're different in ways that make our operation much more
I
expensive.
don't agree
I
completely
mean,
with that.
if you're paying staff for 5 days a week as compared to a smaller number of days a week, it's going to be more expensive.
I'd like to bring in some people from other towns, who are running their transfer stations. Maybe Dover, maybe, Lincoln.
Carlisle's probably.
Well, it needs to be, I mean, I lived in Wellesley, this transfer station, there's like a factory, they sort the glass into like nine. You lived there too, they sorted glass into like 12 colors or something, you had green glass went here.
Other thoughts on days open for a week?
Not on days open per week. Well, sort of, I can make it related. And that is the one thing that I'm really proud of our transfer station about is that they understand service. They help people with their trash. They know most of the people. They are very welcoming, and I'm very reluctant to make them into enemies of our citizens. Where somebody shows up and they ask your identification, give me your passport, blah blah blah. Are your shots up to date before they're allowed to dispose of their trash? That's a whole different flavor.
Well, that's what they're doing now.
So
They're chucking stickers.
you have to accept, though, that if we stick with the status quo, we're implicitly spending tens of thousands of dollars more than comparable towns do. So you have to, you have to get comfortable with the idea that we're good with the current policy and we're happy to have taxpayers pay a significant amount more than taxpayers pay in other towns for trash removal.
No, I'm saying everything and anything can be improved. So I support making improvements. I'm not saying make no changes. What I'm saying is that right now we have a gift of a very friendly, very small town, very accommodating, helpful people. And I don't want to see improvements that change that quality.
Yeah.
Sure, if we can save some dollars, but also keep in mind saving $10,000.
Well, it's more than 10,000.
But you mentioned tens of thousands, whatever it is, isn't going to materially affect the need or not need for an override.
I mean, Carlisle, comparable sized town, something like $100,000 less a year than our operation. So I agree with you. It wouldn't change the need for an override, but it's potentially, there's significant differences in the cost.
Everything can be improved.
I agree that the staff at the transfer station are really helpful and really nice. But Paul, are you saying that if the transfer station were only open 3 days a week, that they would be less helpful, or what? What are you saying? I don't
I'm
think
saying
so.
that-
It would still be
that-
great.
That anytime I've ever wanted to talk to them, I know I can go there and I can find somebody to talk to on 5 days.
Mhm.
If people in Sherborn are busy people, and if you look at this as a service to our community, and you concentrate, just take the extreme case that was only open 1 day a week, you're going to have a line that goes.
Which no one is.
No one-
I understand. I'm doing extreme, but you're going to have a line going all the way up to Natick Mall of people going into the transfer station. And again, it's a qualitatively different experience. People get exasperated at the wait and they're in a hurry. And why is that guy taking so long to throw his trash out? It's qualitatively different. Right now, it's very relaxed and easy. Every time I go there, I relate to other people who are there. It's very neighborly. You know, the guy who may be occupying the space in front of me, I don't get mad at because I know him. Then I go over, maybe help him move his trash, and we have a discussion about the town or whatever, or the Patriots or whatever. There's a flavor there that's unique compared to other transfer stations I've been to. Let's put it that way.
I mean, I'd agree with you that a day a week would not be a good place to land. Again, we're an outlier, and other towns make it work on fewer than 5 days a week.
But I think we're here because it has a small town feel.
And the consequence of that is small town taxes that are high. I mean, that's the trade-off, I think. And if
It may be hard if you're only going to be open 2 days a week. It might be hard for employees because then someone's not getting a full-time job or even a decent second job. Most of the people that work there are doing it as a second or retirement job.
I mean, I'm hearing.
There's pros and cons.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm hearing from you and Paul that you're sort of in the camp of comfortable paying for current level of service.
Well, I'm comfortable with it. We can maybe think of ways to tweak it. Maybe the hours is one way of looking at the cost, but maybe you don't need 3 people there. Maybe you have one person there and 4 days, but sometimes or part of the day only one person. I don't know. I think we need to reduce the cost. I'm not saying we don't, but it is a service to the people in the town. We're open on weekends, which is handy because anyone that brings their own trash there probably isn't doing it at 10 a.m. on a Monday.
And the other towns that have fewer days are always open weekend.
Yeah. No, I saw that table. That's a good table that you put together.
Yeah,
the team put together.
So I was going to say any other. Sounds like you have one very select board comments, and then I wanted to open it up and hear from.
No, I was just going to suggest that we open it up because we're not going to get very far tonight.
Yeah.
And I think
I mean, we're not
in the
making
interim,
decisions.
we'll think about how to focus the discussion and figure out how to make improvements around the edges that,
Or just,
Did you have one last comment?
yes, as I said before, I do have a farm, and therefore I'm recusing myself on the issue of farm issues. If you would segregate that, I'd step away and maybe speak as a citizen. But I would say factually, there isn't for me anything that I would call agricultural waste. It's all residential waste from the people who live there. I raise cattle, and I don't bring cattle to the transfer station. And the manure turns out to be like gold. It's like brown gold. I mean, people come and ask me if they can take it. And I use it to fertilize my fields. So I don't have enough to have a dumpster.
Yeah.
The dumpster would sit there for 3 months before we finish it. So it wouldn't make any sense to have a dumpster. But I'll save my discussion about farms until we have it on the.
Thanks. So let's open things up. Let's start with people in the room. If anybody would like to
Make a comment.
go ahead. Just please introduce yourself and
Sure.
come on up and tell
Well,
us.
good evening, John Holamka. I'm owner of Unity Farm Sanctuary in Sherborn, a physician, engineer, and trained in public policy and economics. So it's a lot like all of you. And so my comments this evening were about agriculture. It was very similar to your comments. We have about 30 acres, and on those 30 acres, rescue animals, and all of the output, call it the agricultural waste, is compost. So we actually don't take agricultural waste off the property. We would take things like cardboard boxes for recycling, or the paper wrappings of pine shavings, but there is extraordinarily little waste that leaves the property other than, I guess you would say, as you pointed out, the residential waste of people who may have packaging from foods or whatever. So as we stratify the data, because I would want to understand reducing cost is good and trying to ensure that we adhere to what our best practices is good. But I am not certain that agricultural side of this is actually a substantial portion of the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, very helpful. It's very helpful.
Thanks, John.
Can I just make a follow-up? I had a developer come by my house and offered to, buy my farm, and he talked about adding 500 houses to Sherborn. If I was struggling financially and was a farmer in town, and I decided, wow, let's do that, you would have 500 more houses, which would be, let's say, 3 or 4 people per house, and all the trash that's being generated. Preservation of farms and preservation of open space is a very important policy of the town. It's always been a very important policy of the town, because the alternative, that's a new elementary school. You're looking at 1,500 more people in town. All kinds of bad things. So a farm like his is one that ought to be encouraged and not penalized.
Unity Farms is wonderful. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Full resources.
And we will preserve it for the town in perpetuity.
We're very grateful.
Thanks, John.
Others in the room? John, did you want to speak?
I'll say a few things. You kind of went all the way around the block and ended up back at the same spot. The downfall that the problem being here is you can't sit in the audience and take good notes. I want to hit on a couple things. Swap shop, which was the third on the list, but I want to hit a couple things on that. I actually had suggested early this spring, before the swap shop opened, that we consider at least weekends to not have out of town residents. And mine was more from a public safety standpoint, because, for a couple of years, we've been looking at the traffic flow and some, safety concerns and some close calls. And one thing I noticed, I try to avoid that place on Saturdays, just because I can't get in and out of there without 5 people wanting to talk to me and talk about roads. But it's really crowded getting in there, and I've been stopped before just trying to get off of North Main Street. So it's something to definitely consider. And again, we don't need to make a permanent decision. I think you need to try some things. I think the consensus is if we never let out of town residents, we're going to end up with too much volume. But a lot of things have changed since you guys made those decisions and what we saw. Facebook Marketplace didn't exist. There's many different ways to get rid of good stuff, and it happens all the time. And that actually adds value to the stuff that's there, which is why we see so many people that choose to spend their entire Saturday and take the stuff. But we also did kind of lose the hometown feel. I wasn't allowed to the dump when my kids were little. They had to go there. They were jumping out of the truck on my way in. They'd be in the swap shop the whole time. I'd see Josh, say hi, and I couldn't get them out of there. That's not the same atmosphere that's there now. So maybe we'd get some of that back. I've had a lot of residents reach out to me. I've shared some of the emails over the years about that, that we've lost that. Maybe we'd get some of that back. And then again, on the slower days, those out of town people that are taking the volume could still have the opportunity perhaps. But it's really difficult. Anyone that's been there on a busy Saturday or Sunday, you see the cars are lined up, and you risk if someone stops in the wrong place, the next 5 cars are out on North Main Street. And I would also, while I make that point, I want to make a point. I've been past Medfield's transfer station on weekends, and that place is 10 times bigger. And I've seen a line of cars out on Route 27. Now, you can pull that off on Route 27 in Medfield because it's 75 feet wide. That's a huge concern if that happens in Sherborn. That's really dangerous. So we need to consider that when we talk about how many days. I think the only option is one less day. And it can't be Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, because we know what'll happen. To go to 3 days would almost guarantee that you'd have people hanging out in the street on the weekends, or some serious, you're just going to increase the safety concerns up on that hill because the place is not laid out well and it never will be. So that's part of the struggle. We're not blessed with a large transfer station like some of our neighboring communities. So we're kind of stuck with that. My last point while I'm up here is construction debris. We tried, actually, when I was still on the board, I was trying to push for some type of accepting C&D waste. It was actually when the ban came from the toilets and they had to start separating the toilets because they couldn't go to the incinerator anymore. And I wanted to. Now, when it's called C&D waste, it's not allowed. It is banned from that place. But there's a pretty good description of what is household waste in both our contract with now Wind Waste, and it's a pretty loose definition the DEP has, and it's many of the things that we see. It's a couple pieces of rotten fence, or someone's swing set fell down and they have some pieces. We don't. The fire chief's not on here, but I'm sure he doesn't want that stuff piled in the backyard as tinder, and the other side of DEP doesn't want that. Concom doesn't want stuff piled up in the wetlands. We want people to clean up their yards, and it's often that's the only option. So for years we've said cut it up into 2 buckets. Well, I could load up 2 buckets and be 500 pounds. We should seriously consider charging for that. Dover does that. I think it's not all that controversial if we set it up in a way that could be policed at the transfer station. Then it shouldn't be all that confrontation. You have a half a pickup truck load. You have a full pickup truck load. It's this much, and we just set the rates such that we're not footing the bill. We know exactly what it costs to get a pound of waste out of there, so we could come up with a pretty good estimate of what that'll be when it's a half a truck. And, we could kind of net out on that rather than have it be a cost. Because I think we all agree that there's quite a bit of that. As was pointed out, I don't think the farms are the problem. I don't even think the commercial is. And I think we certainly can look at a way to recover some of that on the commercial in a similar way. Those are my points for now.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. Very helpful. Jeff.
Yeah.
And just again, it's for people online.
Yes, absolutely.
Introduce yourself.
So, Josh Buckler, I'm the owner and operator of Ruin and Father, and also a resident of town. So I speak both sides of this, right? So, number one, in regards to the swap shop for individuals, for out of town individuals, I do agree 100% that I do think a large majority of that stuff leaves with out of town individuals. So if we cut that off completely, you're going to have a pile up of stuff there that is going to end up in a dumpster, and you're going to pay more to get rid of it. I have no problem with Sean's suggestion. The weekends are very busy, and if that's not the time for them to come in, that's all well and good. That's fine. Charlie has done a fantastic job with the volunteers. I don't believe there's anything coming in to the swap shop from out of town, or I can't say 100% that something doesn't occasionally get snuck in, but Charlie's done a great job with the volunteers in teaching them to watch for stickers, even down there. So I don't think that that's a major issue, that there's large amounts of stuff coming in from out of town. But a lot leaves out of town. In regards to the days of the week, my concern would be that if we shut down, for instance, let's say we take Wednesday off the board, my guys are going to be overwhelmed on Thursday and Friday now, absorbing the cars that would normally come in on Wednesday. I can't guarantee we only have one person there on a Thursday and a Friday. I can't guarantee you that one person is going to be able to handle that additional workload by themselves. They're already at a point sometimes where there's a lot. We just discussed them not being able to watch everybody because he's got to be running a compactor on the opposite side, or the layout is not perfect, and it's never going to be. So my concern as a business owner that is my guys are overwhelmed because we took a day off the week. There's no savings there if I need a second person on a Thursday or a Friday to absorb those extra cars that come in on a Wednesday. Normally would come in on Wednesday. So that would be a concern of mine that I don't want to see my workers get overwhelmed.
Josh, do you have a sense in other towns how they manage that since, most other towns are open, 3 or maybe 4 days?
I don't. Do you know how many employees they have though at a time? I mean, we could go to 3 days a week. That's fine. But I'm going to need 3 guys there when we're open.
I thought you might have some insight.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't know exactly what they're saying.
Right. I do not.
Yeah, okay.
You might
But that-
want to interject here. You might find that some of those towns, fewer people bring their own things. They might have a higher proportion of people that have a collection firm.
Well, that would be my other question is that, you put us as an outlier in that situation, right? Do we have any sense of what percentage of those people are using the recycling center? Because I believe Sherborn probably is a very, very high percentage of the people who use the recycling center, whether it's through my business or whether they're bringing it in themselves. Whereas maybe a town like Dover has a third-party hauler that's not hauling to the Dover Recycling Center. They're hauling it out of town and it's gone. So their percentage may just not be as high of the people that are actually using the recycling center. So, we may be an outlier in that respect, but is it because we just have a much higher percentage of people in town using it? I don't know how you calculate that. I don't know how you could ever.
A good question.
Yeah.
I think Sherborn probably has a very, very high percentage that use the recycling center.
Right.
And I think it may be higher than other towns comparatively. I think you're actually better off looking at a Natick or a Holliston or an Ashland that has municipal pickup and is a much higher percentage using that municipal pickup. They're not using the recycling center necessarily, but that would give you a better idea of what they're generating per household versus a Dover that does not have their own municipal pickup. And if, 40% or 50% of their people are having it hauled out of town.
I mean, the comparisons to almost any other town or, our tonnage is a lot higher.
Even with municipal pickup.
Right.
Yeah.
Josh, could you tell me, for the pickup companies that pick up trash from residences around Sherborn, are they obliged to take it to some outside?
Yeah, so the only other one I know of, other than myself, is Wind Waste, is still picking up a handful of contracts in town. They are not picking up, when they send a truck out that's a 25-yard truck and they pick up 30 houses in Sherborn, that doesn't even put a dent in that truck. So they're off to the next town. So they're not picking up strictly in the town of Sherborn.
Right.
So they are hauling it to, probably to their facility in Millbury or wherever they're hauling it to at that point. Because they're not picking up strictly in Sherborn.
Right. So
I pick up strictly in Sherborn.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yes.
Strictly Sherborn.
Yes.
One big difference is that when somebody in town hires Wind Waste, the fee that resident is paying Wind Waste covers the transportation to the incinerating facility out of town and covers the tipping fee.
Sure.
And when Ruane picks up in town, you charge the customer whatever fee you charge the customer. And then it comes to the transfer station and the town pays the transportation and tipping fee. So it's a different, it's different, as you said, that, there are different proportions in different towns of how much is picked up by someone who's bringing it out of town.
Correct.
But when someone's bringing it out of town, that's covering the transportation and disposal costs, which is a different model than we have here in Sherborn.
It is. But the reality is also that 100% of my customers are eligible to use the recycling center.
Sure.
So if I don't pick up tomorrow, every one of my customers could still bring their stuff in there and you're going to have the exact same tonnage you currently have. Right? It's not going to change that at all. That's not obviously not realistic because somebody's going to hire a different company or whatever it is. But if that were not the case, every one of those customers can still bring in and your tonnage would go down absolutely nothing. Matter of fact, I would like to believe it actually would be worse because I think my guys do a pretty good job of correcting where residents have gone wrong that we pick up for. So I think it's actually worse, and your hauling fees are going to would rise because if it's not being compacted in my truck, you're going to have move more dumpsters more frequently because we're us compacting our truck actually is saving you transportation cost hauling it to Millbury because those dumpsters are going out fuller than they normally would if there was just residents throwing their stuff in. So
But we're paying by the pound, right?
by the ton, yeah.
Yeah.
But you haul
The haul is by the load.
Oh.
Yeah.
Tipping fees when waste the incinerator by the ton, but it needs to get there.
Right.
So we have to pay a trucking fee for it to go out there, yeah. I think those were my,
That was
I don't know if there's any other questions that I can answer for you.
It's very helpful.
Super helpful.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
And like I said, one of the big things for us is that we've asked for policy to be put in place because the one thing I don't want is there to be subjective areas for my guys because that's where we get into problems. Even having like a half a truckload or a truckload fee is difficult for my people because what's a half a truckload? What's a truckload? What they have to make that decision. That's very, very difficult. I would much rather see some sort of weight-based thing, whether we can put a pallet scale in down there and we can, I think Framingham currently does that where they weigh bulk items. And if it's over a certain amount of weight, you pay a X fee or whatever it is. It's just so much easier for my people to have a set number versus anything that's subjective. Even the 2-barrel rule is subjective. If somebody comes in, it's not in a barrel like Paul said, it's in the back of the pickup. My guys have to look at it and say, yeah, that would fit in 2 barrels. And somebody else might look at it and say, no, it can't fit in 2 barrels. And and I do appreciate everything that you guys said about my employees. They do pride themselves in trying to be very helpful down there and being nice to the residents. So
And Josh, thanks. And I just say, this is not, I don't know how it's coming across, but this is, no effort to undermine Ruane, you guys. It's just trying to think about other ways we can do things better.
Yeah, no, and I
work better.
don't take it in any sort of offensive way at all. I think that, like I said, policy is good for us because it makes my life easier down there if we have something black and white. Right now, we don't have very little in black and white that we can refer back to. So we kind of have to, make it up on the fly, if you will. Right. With that being said, though, there's also, something to be we do have to have some level of discretion. There are times when somebody comes in that in a loaner car or, a courtesy vehicle, they're not going to have a sticker on that car. But they come in once a week, every week for 30 years. I think we have to have some ability for my guys to allow that to happen.
That's easy to figure out.
Yeah. So I just, whatever we do, we just want to leave some.
There's one last week that happened. The guy was there, didn't have a sticker, but his mother passed away in Sherborn. So he doesn't live in Sherborn, no, but he's emptying out his mother's house in Sherborn.
And we get that even with somebody gets to a point where they no longer drive.
Yeah.
And their son or daughter comes and picks them up and drives them in, but their son or daughter's car doesn't have a sticker.
Yeah.
This is someone who's lived in town for 50 or 60 years.
Those things you figure out.
Yeah, I think just leave us that discretion in any policy you might do, that we have that ability to get out of that. So
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
anything else from me or?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so let's go to folks online. I've lost track of order here. Sandra, why don't we start with you and just identify yourself, please, and love to hear what your thoughts are.
Sure. Hi, Sandy Niles, 70 Bullard Street. I am a farm owner and a frequent transfer station user. I would say go right ahead and lessen the hours at the swap shop so my husband will come home with fewer things. That would be great. He did chime in. He was sitting next to me for a little while, and he did chime in and say that he does think that the swap shop is a great use for the town, and opening it to people from other towns is a beneficial thing because lots of things go from there that wouldn't otherwise necessarily. So that was a good move that the select board did many years ago. As far as costs of the transfer station, as far as farms go, I think everything that I would say has been said. We don't produce any more here than a normal household. We probably produce less. It's us and a dog and a cat and 3 horses. I mean, many people in town have much more going on in their house and are producing a lot more waste. That said, my parents live in Westport, Mass, which is a very agricultural town, and they have a punch card system. So you buy your annual sticker, and then you pay $25 for 5 punches. And that is one normal trash bag is basically $5. And when you go through your 5 punches, you buy, or if you want to do 10 punches, or 10 bags, then you pay $40 for a punch card. Once you go through that punch card, you get the next one. And it would be very equitable because everybody pays the same for whatever trash they bring to the transfer station. There is a woman at the booth right as you come in who's checking. So I went to go help my parents and I drove in a car without a sticker. And she told me, I'm sorry. First of all, I can't sell you a sticker because it's April 26th and then the new stickers don't come out till May 1st. And secondly, you can't bring trash in because you don't have a sticker. I went and got my mom's car. I came back and then she said it was okay. And I bought a punch card for my parents. They do charge more for large items like mattresses and sofas, and I'm not actually sure how they do construction costs. I think they are also having a similar conversation because there are a lot of people who do construction down there. So I don't know if they have a line where they draw that you can do something or can't do something. But it's just a suggestion. I think, it would make sense to charge something going to the transfer station. I don't think it makes sense to deem all farms businesses because we're not all businesses. And then there's always the loophole of, I think the Hamaka is a great business horse sensibility. There are operations in town that are nonprofits that are agricultural that, how would they be deemed? Would they be commercial? Would they be agricultural? Would they be a nonprofit and therefore not prone to the same? So you need to think about some equity in whatever you decide to do. But I'm in favor of more fees. I think it's time.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
All right, I'm looking to see who's next. Nora, go ahead, please.
Hi. I had a lot of questions. I just took some notes. One of the things that I had here, we need data. So, Josh, thanks for speaking. I think that, first of all, and I went through this 2 weeks ago really quickly, but the towns really to look at, in my opinion, and I've given a lot of information. I've visited the sites, are Dover, which is Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. The Carlisle is the same thing, basically Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. Lincoln is one weekday and one weekend. So it's something to really look at. I think you have the select board has a lot of that information. So the one thing going back to the original, and I don't want to harbor too much on the front part of this conversation that started. Anything, when you say, Jeff, commercial, basically what's commercial, it's all these transfer stations that are the small, under 10,000 residents, we're 4,500 residents, 1,500 households, it's whatever is household trash. So as Sandy was saying, if it's, yes, somebody can have a farm, but it should be household trash. So not commercial landscaping or trucks going by. And I don't know, is trash inspected to see what kind of trash it is? The other thing is you have people or well, we're all people, using the transfer station that are delivering their own trash themselves versus haulers that are picking up the trash, whether it's residential or commercial, and bringing it to the transfer station. And I know all the other towns have the Board of Health, and I know that's being looked into, have applications and permits to all the haulers, whether they have it going out. As Joshua was saying, like Dover, for example, we had 123 tons in March and Dover had 86, I believe, tons. And yes, E.L. Harvey, I think, is their biggest hauler. And yes, they bring it to their own facility. So you have to, but they also report back what the tonnage was. So you can add that tonnage. It's just not separated out between residential and commercial. And there are about 800 residential customers out of the 2,000 households over in Dover. So I think we need to find out, and Josh, I don't know if you've supplied that information or not. I think back in 80, I'm looking at a document from 84 when I was doing research. There were, 615 trips that people were monitoring for 1984, and then looking at the tonnage, but also looking at how many customers. I think at that point there were, believe it or not, in 1984-ish, there were 1,400 plus households, not that much different than now. And I think that Ruane and Father had like 600 or 700 pickups. So I don't know if you have that information, because that would be really helpful to understand and kind of even, figure that out. Has that been supplied yet? Versus like how many commercial pickups and how many residential pickups? And also from wind waste too, we should have that. It would be interesting to see how many people out of 1,500 households have commercial haulers picking up versus people using it individually. So I think we really need to get the data together. And I don't know, for the select board, do you know how much we pay per month to operate that transfer station?
Yeah, I think people know about the contract.
Okay, so it's about more or less, depending, it's 115,000 plus the 3.5% per year. So, and I believe it says, one person for the weekdays and then two people for the weekends. So, I think you could get somebody at Farm Pond even, they have stricter access to Farm Pond than we do at our transfer station.
Nora, hang on a second. Wait.
I need
go
to
ahead.
clarify that a little bit. That's not the
Sure.
right number for the operation of the transfer station. That contract includes picking up all the commercial waste at these buildings.
I
and
understand,
all
that's what I said.
recreation
Well,
facilities. So let me finish. So that's, you can't just put that number up. That is not the operation of the transfer station solely. It's pick up at all the town buildings except for Pine Hill, and pick up at all the facilities and all the special events that's built into that contract.
So it would be nice to
That's
split
just the way-
what it is.
And
It
I
would be
wanted,
nice.
or let me just, I wanted to try to keep this conversation pretty high level, so don't want to get too deep in the weeds, because I think that's, not the right thing for tonight.
Okay, and then lastly, is, without having to get a weigh station, Dover has, I think, $90 and $45 for a truckload versus a half a truckload pickup truck. So I think there's a way to do this, and Sandy had some great ideas too. I mean, every transfer station is a little bit different. Carlisle, they have $55 no matter what, whether you use a hauler or whether you go do it yourself or a combination. So there's all different ways to deal with with this. So I can give a presentation in the next couple of weeks with the slide deck that I started to put together. I'm happy to do that.
Daryl, let's go to you. Are you there, Daryl?
Yes, Vicki has had her hand up longer than I have, if you want to go to her.
All right, I'm losing track of who
All
had
right,
stuff.
so-
Go ahead, Daryl, and then we'll go to Vicki. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll be Daryl Beardsley, Forest Street resident first. I'm certainly in favor of Sherborn residents not underwriting the cost for people from outside of Sherborn. However, I am very much in favor of the swap shop remaining open to folks from outside of Sherborn, because I do think it helps recycle materials, which is part of our goal in reducing waste. So I view that as a benefit. There were a few things mentioned made me think about whether having the swap shop open when the rest of the transfer station is not open, so it's easier to monitor whether people are then slipping in trash somewhere. Maybe just easier to oversee that in general. That might reduce how much gets taken away, though, from our town and ends up going into the trash. Quick thing, Dawn was mentioning C&D waste, which can be very bulky. There is a C&D facility right next to the Millbury facility of wind waste, where the incinerator. So maybe there's some other mechanism, either just a separate dumpster that only gets picked up periodically. There might be some other option because the transport is not that far. The other C&D, well, actually, Harvey runs a C&D recycling facility as well. And then, let's see, I'm just going to mention with my Board of Health hat on, comparing information from one town to another, assuming that Board of Health collection of numbers is going to be accurate, is on shaky ground, because there's no way to really track whether the tonnage that someone provides on a form is reflecting what is really happening. And different wastes weigh a different amount. Maybe going by volume of the trucks dropping things off. I don't know if there's going to be tracking. Those are very complicated issues. But there may be some other approaches than asking the haulers to estimate tonnage. I think volume might be a little bit more reliable. And this comes from years of working with manufacturing facilities who dispose of waste and working with the treatment, storage, and disposal facilities who receive waste. So I have seen a lot of that data and a lot of the issues that they face in trying to figure all that out. And it is not simple. Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. Okay, Vicki, why don't we wrap up with you?
Thank you. And just a quick question. No, I don't think what Daryl just said, there's no other haulers that go into the towns that we're using as comparison. The only thing that goes into the other towns is the town people's wastes. We have a hauler that puts in our, but there's no other haulers. Is that correct? Am I correct on that? Nora, you probably would know better.
No, I think, Daryl, so to answer your question, for example, E.L. Harvey, when they drop off to their facility, they know how many tons, they report back how many tons of solid waste was collected.
It
So,
has nothing to do with the town.
yeah, that no other, commercial hauler except for Wayne takes any tonnage.
I
waste.
try to keep this discussion focused on high level.
I just wanted to get that straight because I wasn't sure that data also. Just thank you all for the input. I wrote something up. I may be redundant with some of the conversation that went on, but it's purely economical. I want to state my interest in the situation is clearly as a citizen over 20 years in Sherborn and also purely economical. It's a money issue and a serious one, and I don't want it to be considered as anything else. Numerous critical issues have been identified and more may come to light or have come to light tonight, and they carry a price tag. Every month this board delays action on the transfer station, Sherborn is leaving money on the table and the total is not trivial. Between the unrecovered tonnage costs and the cost of another open day, we're talking well over $100,000 a year, which is real money and it's coming out of taxpayers' pockets. The simple and immediate resolution is to stop allowing non-residents sticker-free cars to dump in their trash, which has been happening a lot. And I'm glad that was addressed tonight to see that going on. And and the DIY projects and landscape trash, commercial and farm trash, I think we addressed all of that. I think as investigated other ways that we can help residents of the town get rid of DIY project stuff, and I will present that as part of my recycling commission as well. Again, I don't want to be redundant about closing days a week, but if you also calculate that out, if you're only operating, our operation now is about $500 a day, which comes up to $2,000 a month. So if we were only open 3 days a week, like Dover or Carlisle, money would represent probably around $48,000 a year savings. Other issues such as recycling material bottles and CAM redemption metal have been looked at, and other towns have recovered between $15,000 and $20,000 a year from that. So that would be other potential revenue. Steve Tsai warned us at town meeting that a tax hike is likely on the horizon. If there is an override, very likely could mean, between $500 and $1,000 per household if there is an increase. Against that backdrop, a six-figure recoverable sum is not a rounding error. It is a meaningful offset to a next year's budget. And the difference between a smaller override and a larger one is significant. So every dollar this board needs to recover will help the residents make up any cost to them especially. I'm not going to continue to go on everything else that I had down that I would write. I just want to let you all know I appreciate the effort you're putting into this, and I really would suggest very highly that the select board either visit all of these places that Nora has and Jeremy has all the data on and Dan has as well, or as been suggested to have other town administrators come in, because we've talked to them and they have said they would come in and lend a hand in trying to figure this out because they've all dealt with it. They've dealt with the swap shop issue. They've dealt with the timing issue. Lincoln, I've talked to that TA. He said they saved hundreds of thousands of dollars a year doing what they do now. So, as I said, my issue is purely economical. I don't want to see this town under any more burden for taxes. And I think that you're going in the right direction. So thank you for that. That's it.
Okay, so thanks everybody for what I think was a good discussion, maybe a bit meandering and all over the map, but I think it helped air some of the issues and provide a little more sense of what people are thinking. I think we're going to wrap up this discussion for tonight. My sense is next steps would be for Jeremy and working group to start taking the kind of template policy that they've been working with and try to develop that a little more and leave in kind of bracketed areas for where there are key choices for the select board to make. And I think that will be after we've had these couple of meetings of very full general discussions. I think that will focus us on, specific decisions that need to be made either to keep things as they are or to change things.
A question related to that, though, a number of topics came up with where we might need more data on, like tonnage or other things.
Yeah.
So that'll be part of the committee.
Yeah, I think Jeremy and the team are going
to generalizing what I'm showing.
Are going to work on that, though I come back to the comment that I made earlier that some of the data that people would like are ungettable.
Not ungettable, but like
there's some
a point about whether you're 4 days or 3 days, but you have to have more people on the 3 day shift.
Usually know the staffing at other places.
It's whether you're releasing money by only 3 days. You're not cutting a quarter of the cost by only 3 days necessarily.
I completely agree with you with where we can get more data.
All right, that's good. This was good.
Okay, good. All right. So thank you to everybody who came for this conversation. Thank you for folks on Zoom who did that. Really pleased to get a wider set of voices because it's a consequential set of choices that are going to get made, and it's really important to hear from as many people as possible. So thanks. All right. So they get to go home. We still have more work to do. Thanks. Good night. All right. So the final big item on the agenda.
It's going to go to the men's room.
Oh, all right. So why don't we just take a break for 2 minutes?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, we'll start. Okay.
I mean, I've read the stuff you sent me, and I read what's on the back.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Well, we'll just wait a minute here.
Almost no other subject in town gets the attention that says you can't.
Yes,
you're not alone.
Trash is like the third grade.
Oh my God!
Trash is recycling. Think about the issue is one of these issues where
it affects everyone.
It affects everyone in a very direct way.
Raising taxes, you're not. I mean,
but there also these issues in a way isn't really a middle ground in that in the following sense.
Yeah.
That if we decide to maintain the status quo, or we decide to make a lot of significant changes, there'll be some people who will be happy about it, and there'll be some people who'll be really unhappy about it. Whatever decision we make, there'll be some.
But we've never we had no one show up when we have like the annual town meeting. We didn't know we were gonna have a quorum this year.
And for those online, we're just taking a short break, and in just a minute we'll get started on our last item.
I don't know. It's just cracked me up.
It's the third rail. It's like talking about Social Security care.
Yeah, I guess you're the economist, that you would know better than I do, but
Ways and trash. Everybody knows.
Liquor licenses.
You know, a lot of opinions, a lot of ideas. It's all good. The line to all politics is local, right? These are the things that affect people's everyday lives as compared to, you know, things that happen in higher levels of government. No, that was a good, I think we, and
Yep, yeah.
I think it's very
You
helpful.
did
Thanks.
a good job of keeping it at a high level, I think. Right? I made a difference. We get bogged
The
down.
question is with trash, what is a high level?
So should we just get started?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
And he said he's ready. So, all right, so the last item, this major item is discussing select board goals for the coming year. And I want to just start by picking up on something Jeff said last when we had a conversation about this. And you know, you had talked about, you know, that these things weren't goals. And you know, to me, it sounded like what you were suggesting was almost a different process of really trying to think about values, goals, and, you know, sort of 5 very high level things.
Yeah.
And this was intended, and maybe it's what we want, or maybe it's not, but it was really intended more as a to-do list for the coming year. And you know, just a different kind of exercise than.
Well, the only thing is a to-do list can be too narrow to the, let me just make a comment that I think this is a very good list, but I like the bullets that have 1 or 2 sub-bullets. In other words, improve long-term planning, there's 2 bullets under them. The first 2 don't have successfully managing challenging budget year I think needs maybe 2 bullets under. So I think
all of these need
what you've said is true, but you know, some of them are very successfully hire a strong candidate for fire department town accountant positions. Those are pretty specific things. But successfully managing the upcoming budget year and pursuing strategies to improve financial sustainability are too vague to me. They're not a goal because there's no measure in there. Whereas these other words, I think adding either there's a couple that are very narrow, like successfully hiring a town finance director, town accountant. That's pretty specific. The ones that are too high level, maybe just put a sub bullets under them to make them be somewhat measurable. Not these are goals, so they're not like quantifiable, I would say, but most of the other ones were fairly specific.
Okay, so I think so work could be done on.
Because one like successfully managed Pooling Street projects, at least it's defined as to.
Yeah, so I think some work could be done on that.
Yeah.
Were there on these other items that either of you thought should be included, or items that were here that seemed like they shouldn't be included?
Some of the items are really not our job, like the zoning bylaw review. The planning board is doing that.
Well, I wonder the same about Pine School, because we have school committee and I'm not sure how much.
I guess that's an interesting question of whether.
Does that mean about whether you mean the future of this Pine Hill School, like the building, or do you mean the
building?
Build the building, because under the infrastructure category.
Buildings.
Technically, not a bit.
No, I know it is. Yeah.
Comes under your insurance.
Yes.
Capital costs are under your budget.
I mean, it is an interesting question that, you know, I think Marion raised. You know, whether we want to think of this as these are select board goals, or like, you know, the planning board, you know, that's going to be an important effort that the town undertakes. But as Marion said, it's not really select board, it's planning board. And I guess
I like calling them town goals. Doesn't mean the select board's leading them.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that's if this were intended to be select board goals, it would be a little narrower. The initial vision was more, you know, town goals, but.
I like that.
I think our select board goals go under communications. I'm wondering if this is a goal or how you guys feel about it, but I know that there used to be kind of a select board policy where each select board member was assigned to one or another major committees or boards and went to their meetings. So
There's a lot of discussions about that and a lot of reasons not to do that.
See, I didn't hear your point, Paul.
A lot of reasons not to do that.
Because,
Because then you have selectmen being rivals over who gets the plum of having the police department, for example.
yeah,
Or who gets the committee that nobody else wants. It's becomes a way of people getting.
we also want ideas to bubble up to the select board, not necessarily.
right,
feel like
but you know, sometimes I feel like we're working in silos a little too much.
Yeah,
It's not like we're going to, you know, have rival committees getting our attention, but just to make sure we have our finger on the pulse.
One other idea that puts in mind is, and I know we've done this a little bit, but could do more, is have committee chairs come and spend a little bit of time with us, on a rotating basis in some meetings, and so
That's more
try
convenient
to
for
maybe
us.
a couple times a year invite committee chairs to
makes us
tell us sort of
more.
what have you been working on.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that's a better idea, because rather than a select board going and sitting through some of the very long meetings, you get the distilled report that you need.
So you could ask them to do maybe twice a year do reports back to us.
Including challenges that they
Oh,
made ideas on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would add that under communications.
That's an excellent idea. Some towns have what they call all boards meetings. You have a meeting in which all boards are invited, and you kind of go around the room and say, what are your plans for the upcoming year? And then you discover that sometimes people are working in opposite directions. Somebody's working to, finish the project on Cooler Street, and somebody's working to make sure it never happens. And sort of flushes things out and gives you a chance to sit back as
Right.
chief elected officials to say, well, wait a second, why don't we get on the same page?
Mm.
And it's also important that we all have the same knowledge. In other words, if you acquire all this important information, then when you're voting on something, your vote's going to be much more meaningful and much more informed than the rest of us who are going to be relying on the sources of information that we otherwise would have. It's important that all select board members have the same information.
So that would argue for having board and committee chairs come to the select board twice a year and tell us all what's going on.
Oh, and so sort of dedicate a full meeting or a significant chunk of the meeting to that, and so that everybody hears everybody else's report. Paul, let me ask you the same question that I asked just a minute ago, which is on this list, were there items that you would cross off or that you would add?
No, just first of all, I wanted to thank you for
Well, I got some comments from people too, which helped.
for putting this together. I thought I thought it was well done. I like the idea of improving communications with residents. And one thing I noticed from reading several years of minutes was that was a constant theme in many of the minutes about, this was going back 5-6 years, but it's been constant that we need to improve communication with residents. It reminds me of, in some towns, somebody went around the town with a recording with a microphone asking people, what do they think of your board of selectmen? And most of the people didn't know what a board of selectmen was.
Yeah.
They didn't know what they were being asked.
Where are they bored?
Let alone who's on the board.
I think it's why they
The
So-
closest thing we have to that is the COA link thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you know, it should be broader than that.
Okay, so I think do another round of work on these and see if they can get refined.
No, but this is it, man. I didn't mean it as a negative.
Oh, yeah.
I like what
Mm-hmm.
I like the major buckets too. The financial communications, land use, it was sort of created in domains is the word I would use.
But I think, you raised we have a few different things, but, that maybe some of these can be a bit more specific with what's.
Yes, some are sort of like pie in the sky, or some are sort of tactical, but
Yeah. Okay.
it's good. But it's better than what we had,
We'll do some more work on it and continue. Daryl had her hand up, so I'm.
No, I think she.
Daryl, do you have your hand up from before? Or did you have a comment on this?
No, I was just going to say the idea of boards coming in to talk to you sounds great. We've often considered that and reaching out to you about it. We've just been very busy, and so it falls off our radar, but I think it'd be great.
Good. Okay. Thanks. All right. So
There may be some occasional topics, as I know that I attend a lot of other meetings. Instead of just having a Board of Health come, there may be something where we want to have Concom Board of Health
Yeah.
where they're all
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
water restrictions on development. Things like that.
Paul had made the comment about doing something with everybody, and maybe there's an intermediate ground like that.
I think
where
that's better, yeah.
There, here
Come with
here are folks
everybody.
that kind of do land use things.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Here are folks that do financial things.
Exactly, yeah,
That
yeah.
might be a way to.
I think that would work if it's focused on something.
Yeah.
Like the Coolidge Street project.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Something like.
Okay, very good.
That's really good.
So moving on to the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Mr. Duran says, thank you. Second,
I second it. Yeah.
all in favor? Okay, very good, thanks. Select board reports.
Oh, I do have something. We, at the Open Space Committee meeting the other day, we were discussing that Sam, who's the Open Space Chair, is going to be our representative to the Land Acquisition Committee. So I wondered who are the other members being appointed to Land Acquisition Committee by the other boards that are going to supposed to appoint them. And I know Diane,
I have the list downstairs at my desk. Do you want me to run down there and try and find it now? Or-
you have the list of
I
appointees.
have a list of like the planning board, open space.
Select
do that
board.
next meeting.
Yeah,
They've
all have-
yet.
The other committees have appointed people.
The planning board has,
So you have a list of actual names? from
yes,
the
that
board?
they gave me.
This is
Yes.
for membership of
Diane,
land
can you
acquisition?
compile that. and
I'll
send
send it out. How's that sound?
Right.
Yeah.
The select board has not made an appointment yet. The moderator has not made any appointments yet.
Have we advertised?
Yes. I've got. And then
Diane, can you reach out again to the moderator or anyone
I will
who
listen
hasn't
to Jaimo.
responded?
Absolutely. I'll cut.
And maybe for next time we can.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Moderator might not know enough.
Yeah.
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 I'm not sure I understand. The moderator is a pretty smart guy.
No, I know him well. He is a smart guy, but he might not know people in town for a specific committee or role.
Does he know that he's supposed to be appointing somebody to the committee?
Yes, we did have a little bit of a discussion.
Yeah.
Mike Jaimo and I already did have
He
one.
does know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
We also need to think about our appointment.
I know, I say, we're gonna be the last one.
And it doesn't have to be a member of the committee.
Exactly.
No.
It could be anyone.
Could be somebody else, correct.
Okay, very good. Other select board reports? Oh, administrator report.
Yeah, 3 updates. Update on the tennis court project. Just received the last coat of pavement.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a waiting period that, Paul has to sit before you put the surface,
Yeah.
color surface down. 21 days, so 21 days, they'll be able to use the actual court surface,
Yeah, yeah.
the lines down. But that's on track to be open in early September timeframe. update that we did post you for a meeting next Thursday night. That's July 30th. If you want to attend the ZBA meeting, however, the ZBA meeting is likely going to be deferred that topic. So
Excuse me, it was canceled.
it was canceled.
And I canceled you guys too.
All right,
Oh,
so that's why
okay.
you were posted for next month, just in case you wanted to attend, but it's been canceled.
Okay.
And just to leave you with one final update, the COA staff were successful in getting a grant, almost $10,000 to update the signage within town hall, the directional signage. So all the signs for the different offices and where to go and how to get around town hall. So
Great, okay.
thanks to them for that. Something that we've been wanting to do, and now they identified some funds for us to do it.
So it doesn't direct you through the front door, out the back door?
Town administrator's office.
A question, were you finished though?
Yeah.
Have they started, where are we standing with the history center?
Yeah, that's going very well.
Yeah.
We're actually starting to plan the moving. We're starting to plan sort of a phased staging.
Oh, and storage down at that.
Like to sort out materials before it just ends up.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So we've been working with the library folks to do that. So
Yeah.
have a space outside of their space where the history folks can bring their materials, sort it, and sort of bring it in
Yeah.
and get rid of some stuff.
That's where we're using George Fisk donated one office in his building where there was
It's
stuff.
they're on budget,
Yeah.
on schedule, a little longer, but all reasonable delay
Yeah.
based on actually some additional shelving that they'd like to put in. Is
Good. That's good news.
everybody is happy with the schedule. They were putting up the
Think
ceiling.
about a way to showcase it. I think
Just today they were doing it part of the ceiling, which is kind of intricate work to get the ceiling under the fire protection and the lights and everything. So looks great.
That's
Folks want to take a
amazing.
look. No.
So will it be a grand opening gala?
Yeah. Doug will do that, I would think, would you?
They will. So within the next couple of months, there'll be
Excellent.
events.
Great.
Sounds good.
Good. All right. Anything else? Okay, I think we're done, Mr. Francis.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.